Welcome back to the College Football Fanatic post-game show, post-game week 4, and let's just dive on in. So let's start with Clemson in the loss to Syracuse. 1-3 for Clemson, their worst start since 2004. This is probably the worst case scenario start for Clemson. Like, if we're being realistic to start the year, if you asked Clemson fans, worst case scenario, how did the first 4 games go? They would say, well, let's say, worst case, probably lose to LSU. We'll beat Troy. We're not losing to Troy, but then you'll lose the next 2 games at Georgia Tech and then home versus Syracuse. That's exactly what happened. So Clemson fans, I feel bad for you guys. This has to suck. I mean, this is not at all the way you thought this season was going to go. There was so much hype around this team, and I jumped on the bandwagon too a little bit with the returning production and Cade Klubnik Heisman stuff, and there was a lot to like about Clemson, and they've been such a letdown. Obviously, they're not exceeding standards. Obviously, they're not meeting standards either. They are well below the standard and the expectations, I should say. So for the Clemson fans that are pissed and that want to get rid of Dabo, let's just touch on that a little bit. And we're not even going to get into the, when you fire someone, you have to hire someone. So then who would they get? I'm not even going to get into that right now, but let's just talk about if you did fire Dabo, and they're not going to right now, I don't think. But if they did, the buyout is significant. It's pretty big. $60 million in 2025 right now. It drops to $57 million in 2026, and then 2027 and onward, the buyout is just the full remaining salary, whatever that is. So we're not talking about, a little chunk of change. We're not talking about 10, 15, 20 million. And this all, for context, goes back to, I think it was in 2021 when Dabo signed that 10-year, I think $115 million contract extension. So that made him one of the highest paid coaches in college football. And now here we are, Clemson's just with the horrible start to the season, and Dabo is nowhere close to having this team meet his expectations. And part of the problem is also, the roots of this issue is not just Dabo. Now, ultimately, he is the head coach, and so everything falls back on him. But the Tom Allen hire this offseason for defensive coordinator, is that one of the worst hires of the offseason so far? Because Clemson's defense can't stop anybody. So I'm not sure what you do with Clemson. Again, this totally sucks for Clemson fans, and there's just nowhere to go from here. I mean, you're eliminated from the playoff, right? Like you could run I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can even say that now because, they're not going to win the ACC, but if they did, you would get in, but they're at the point now. I mean, they're 1-3. Like, the playoff hopes are minimal. They're done. So now you worry about, is there something for them to play for? Are they going to be motivated? Can they dig themselves out of this? So this is probably going to be Dabo's toughest challenge so far, I would imagine, and it's not looking good at all for Clemson. Let's move on to Michigan beating Nebraska. And if you didn't get a chance to watch this game, and if you only saw the final score, I feel that this game wasn't as close as this score would indicate, because I think it was, a 3-point win for Michigan. So let's start on the Michigan side here. And some of these stats, I don't know if they're confirmed yet, but what I'm seeing is that they had 12 broken tackles and gained 142 yards after contact. And I think that tells a lot of the story here, because Michigan was stretching this game and stretching this lead throughout. And then Nebraska had that Hail Mary at the end of the first half just to pull themselves back in. But Michigan running the football, they had complete control over the ground. They were gaining chunk yards, chunk plays. Haynes popped another big run. Obviously, Bryce Underwood, they're kind of unlocking something there with his running ability. And he kind of, side note, he reminds me of like the present day modern version of a Terrell Pryor, and just that big body frame, and he's fast and can kind of stride away from you. And I think once he gets older, probably by next year, he'll put on some more weight. I think he's going to have a nasty stiff arm, so we'll watch for that. He's going to be a really good player, especially with on the ground game. But Michigan just can control this game on the ground. And the yards after contact, the broken tackles, the tackling thing drove me nuts with Nebraska. I don't know if I have the numbers for how many missed tackles that they had. I mean, the 12 broken tackles kind of tells that story, but Nebraska just kind of felt outcoached and outplayed, and their players weren't tackling. They would either just whiff on guys completely, or they wouldn't wrap up and Michigan would bounce off them. And again, going back to that that Hail Mary at the end of the first half. I mean, Michigan was stretching this game, and they had control over it. Nebraska pulled themselves back in, which kept them in the game, and then they had that late touchdown at the end, and then tried to get the onside kick, and they looked good for a second, but I really feel that this final score was not a true indication about how I felt during the game. And even in the third quarter, as that's winding down, I had the realization that Nebraska's not going to win this game. That's not going to happen. And Michigan, without Sharon Moore, if that means anything, I don't know if it does, outcoached and outplayed Nebraska in this game on the road. And so a lot of credit to them. On the Sharon Moore thing really quick, I don't know. I mean, they're playing good without him. You can just say that's a lot of credit to Sharon Moore for having a good game plan on here's how things are going to go and here's how it should look when I'm not there. He's also not there and they're playing well. I don't know. You know, it could mean nothing, but Michigan could be really scary down the stretch, especially once Bryce Underwood starts to develop and just refine himself as a passer. He can make every throw in the field, and he has all the arm talent in the world. He has the precision, the accuracy. He's not completing every throw right now, if that makes sense. He can make every throw, but he's not completing all of his passes. He's a freshman, right? He's young still, so he's not dialed in yet. He's going to get a lot better with game reps and just gaining more experience, but there's a lot to like with Michigan here. And Nebraska, if we talk about the quarterback, Dylan Raiola, I don't know how I feel about Dylan. I don't think he's a special talent. I think Bryce Underwood is a special talent, and I think a lot of people would agree on that. I don't feel the same way with Dylan. Now, that doesn't mean I think he's a bad quarterback. I think he's on the scale from fine to good. You know, on a bad day, he's fine for being a Power 4 starting quarterback, a big-time college football quarterback. And then on a good day, he can be really good. Now, maybe he can turn into an elite player, but he's not special. He's not in that special camp. And if you look at his box score, which I'm going to pull up here, and again, like if you didn't watch the game and looked at the box score, you'd go, oh, good game from Dylan. And I'm not saying it was a bad game, but if you just look at his numbers, 30 of 41, completing 73% of his passes, 300 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 pick. That's a great day. On paper, that's a great day, but he doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel like he could win you a game like this. And again, now, to his credit, he did kind of, I don't want to say all that he can, but he was getting blown up. Michigan's defensive line was getting after him like crazy. They had 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss, so his offensive line could not hold up. So you could say, well, he had those numbers and he was sacked 7 times and his offensive line couldn't hold up. That's a great day for Dylan. And I'm not disagreeing with that. I just kind of feel that maybe that's the best of Dylan Raiola right now. And we have a large sample size on him now. Starting last year as a true freshman, got a lot of games under his belt. And then starting this year, and again, he's not a bad quarterback. I think he's a really good college football quarterback. He's just not special. And in a game like this, when the game started to get away from them, I think they needed someone to be special, and he just wasn't quite that. Again, you can say, what more do you want him to do? What bugs me a little bit is sometimes I feel like he's kind of forcing himself to be kind of that backyard football type of quarterback, make a fancy throw here, try to make a play. You know, if he's going down, try to run around for a little bit. He feels he's being grabbed and being sacked, and then try to throw the ball, and that is almost always a disaster. And again, that goes back to the Patrick Mahomes thing. Like he's trying to copy and mimic Patrick Mahomes' entire life, it feels like, but also his playing style. Clearly, he can make that work and has some success doing it. And at the same time, if you're going to mimic a quarterback and you can be successful doing it, why would you not do Patrick Mahomes? But I'm fine with that for the most part. I know that's a hot topic with a lot of people in the college football world. I don't really care. He's a college kid, fine. But sometimes I think it goes too far. And he had a play today where there was one pass where he just dropped that arm angle and just kind of sidearmed that ball. And I think it was still a completion, but it just felt like it didn't need to be that sidearm throw. And then again, we talked about it already, but the backyard football, try to run around and make a play, throwing the ball while being sacked, and then that doesn't end well. Some of those throws, some of that playing style in those throws sometimes kind of feels forced, and to me just kind of knocks Dylan down a little bit. Again, the numbers, great numbers. He's accurate. He's a high completion quarterback. He can throw for 300 yards against a competition like Michigan. That's great. He's showing you he can do that. But I don't know. I just don't think he's special, and sometimes he forces plays and forces arm angles and throws that don't need to be there. Last point here on Nebraska, 0-29 in their last 29 games against ranked opponents. I think I'm going to double check that just to be sure, but they're cursed. I mean, if we can joke about this for a second, like Clemson fans, I feel bad for you. Nebraska fans, I also feel bad for you, just in a different way, because you guys aren't as bad as Clemson, but man, like at some point, Nebraska has to win one of these games. Let's move on to Texas Tech beating Utah. Very impressive game by Texas Tech. I mean, this was a game, for the large part of it until the fourth quarter. 24 points in the fourth quarter for Texas Tech. They just really kind of blew that game open in the fourth with their backup quarterback, Will Hammond. He had a great day. This is a statement win for Texas Tech. If you look at their remaining schedule, and I'm going to pull it up here. Let's see. So October 4th, their next game, they play at Houston, and then they have Kansas, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, BYU, UCF, and West Virginia. There was nobody really scary there on that schedule. So I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to go undefeated, because it's hard to do that. Even in the regular season and in the Big 12 with the remaining schedule like this, it's just things can go wrong for you. Things can go right for someone else. You go on the road at Arizona State. I don't know. That could be a tough game, a weird game, whatever. So I'm not going to say that they're going to go undefeated, but they're in a really good position to go on a playoff push here. And yeah, maybe they won't have the best resume, but they have the chance to win a lot of games. And what they did today, closing out that fourth quarter, having the backup quarterback, Will Hammond, I mean, he was throwing dimes. Like, he was not just dinking and dunking his way down the field. He was pushing the ball downfield and putting it in the perfect place. They have a chance to make some real noise this year. And then the last game I want to touch on, and it's just finished as I'm recording this, Indiana destroyed Illinois 63-10. And I don't have notes on this, so I'm just going to kind of spitball this. But, okay, a 53-point win. That's crazy for Curt Cignetti in Indiana. They were at home, the night game. Like, I get that. That helps. They were hyped for that. Curt Cignetti, like, I think people, if they didn't have faith in him last year, or if they felt, that's not the right way to put it, but if they felt last year was a one-hit wonder, that's a better way to say it. So far this year, Indiana looks awesome. I mean, they're throwing the football around. They are explosive on offense again. Illinois, the rankings, especially this point of the year, mean nothing. They're ranked 9th, so it's a top 10 win for Indiana at the time that they played them. Illinois is not the 9th best team in the country, but I was definitely higher on Illinois for sure in the offseason, so I'm definitely not going to say that this is not an impressive win. This is an extremely impressive win for Indiana. I think it's just cementing home that not only was this looking out to be a home run hire for Indiana, but Curt Cignetti, I mean, the man deserves a little bit of respect. And I know that Indiana last year, kind of looked like this, and they were a top 10 team and top 5 team, I think, at one point when they played Ohio State. And then they play, a team with talent like Ohio State or whatever, and they just don't quite belong on the same field. It could be the similar field this year, but for Curt Cignetti to come in and have immediate success last year, and then this year just continuing to have a team ready to play and scoring at such an impressive level, he deserves a lot of credit. And Indiana is not a team that you can sleep on, right? Like, you got to come ready to play and ready to run, because they're going to put up some points on offense, and they're also going to make a lot of noise.